Well, good morning again, and today's talk is entitled, Don't Bring Me Down, Race Consciousness. You know this ELO song? Don't bring me down, Bruce. I wanted JD to sing that song, but it's just a little bit out of his range, so thank you for trying that one. Maybe another time. But I want to get clear on race consciousness because there was another minister in the area who saw the sign out front and thought, yeah, that's a little political if you're talking about races of people. I said, no, we're talking about the human race. And he said, oh, that's totally different. I said, yes, race consciousness is when we all believe the same thing and we don't even know that we believe it. Such as, when you pull up to a stop sign or a red light, we know to go. No, we have to stop, right? I mean, we have all agreed to that, and 99% of us adhere to that, depending on who gets to the stop sign first, right? Some people just roll right on through and they know you're going to stop. But we have an agreement that when we all come to a red light, we stop. That's a race consciousness belief, and that keeps us safe. That helps us to not crash into each other, right? Well, this month's theme is realizing the power of mind. And from our Global Heart Vision, it says, we believe in control of conditions through the power of this mind. And that's by Ernest Holmes. And from what we believe in the healing of the sick and control of conditions through the power of this mind. Wow, that's a pretty big statement, you know? Healing of sick through the power of mind. Well, there's an old saying that says, if you believe you can, you probably will. And if you believe you can't, you probably won't. And that's so true. How many times have we felt so secure in what we were going to attempt to do that there was no question if we were going to achieve it or not? And how many times have we stepped into a situation, possibly a test or we were confronted by information that we weren't ready to understand, and we were blindsided and we felt that we weren't up to the task. And so we failed at it. And it happens. Well, we have to know that when we prepare ourselves, tests are easy when we know the answer, right? Well, we live in a spiritual universe. Everything is spirit. There's not a spot where God is not. Everything is energy, including what we see in this physical realm. And since all is energy and spirit is the cause of every spiritual thing, physical thing that we can see, then the effect is the physical world, which is really a spiritual world. You know, you've heard the old saying, you know, you're an earthly being having a spiritual experience, or a spiritual being having an earthly experience, but truly you're a spiritual being having a spiritual experience. There's nothing that's not a spiritual experience. We are just used to this plane of existence and the way that things move about, and we think it's happenstance. What is a miracle then? A miracle is just a science that we haven't figured out yet. Miracle happens and we go, oh, you know, it's a miracle. Someone has an x-ray one day that says that they may have a challenge in their body. And overnight, it seems, if the person changes some belief about that, and they go back the next week for another x-ray of the same thing, it's gone. How do we explain that? It's a miracle. But when you're no longer a suitable host for that challenge, it dissipates. It's when we get into it and we play the ain't it awful game that it perpetuates. So practically everything when it comes into the world is perfect. It then takes on objectivity, but it brings with it, subjectively, certain tendencies. Have you ever gone to a doctor and you've had some sort of pain and they say, well, does this run in your family? You know, I see it as the doctor trying to take a shortcut. You know, like, well, if your dad had a heart challenge, then that's what the challenge is you're going to have. And I'm like, I never tell them when, something's going on. I want them to, figure it out for themselves. What is my condition? I may have a tendency, but that doesn't mean that that's the way I am. Now, when you're in distress, I would say tell the doctor what your family tendency is, but that doesn't make it so for you. You don't have a tattoo that says this is what's going to happen to you because your family has always had this happen to you. It may be a tendency. Very seldom does it bring disease. Very few diseases are inherited in spite of all the claims that people make that they inherit heart trouble, tuberculosis, etc. They do not. What they do, however, is to inherit a subject receptivity toward a belief in those things. Do you see the subtle difference? If somebody says, well, my family has always had fill in the blank, what are you telling your body? You're telling your body to have a certain weakness because my family's always had that, so I should have that too. This is why I don't like to buy into those tendencies, because I've lived a completely different life than my family. Each one of us lives completely different. Although there may be certain tendencies, it's possible that because I ran around the block every day for years, that my heart is much stronger than a sibling. And the comparison won't make a comparison because of how I've treated my body. So at first, children are happy, free, and spontaneous. That is why we like them. They live instinctively. As they grow older and their emotions become more complex, and they hear people talk about death, trouble, divorce, love and marriage, and everything else that is good, bad, or indifferent, they begin to react to these emotions subjectively. Subjectively, if you heard that these people that were getting married were always getting divorced, what would your subjective belief be about marriage? That people get divorced. Well, that's what people do. You get married and you get divorced. There's in It's a Wonderful Life, the maid of the house was very funny in that at the end of the show when they're all giving their money into the big basket. She says, I was saving up for a divorce if I ever got a husband. It's like, what are you telling yourself? Why even get married then, right? If you're going to save for a divorce and you're not even married yet. But everything that opposes harmony and spontaneous unity will prove disastrous to the child's health sooner or later. The inherent part is simply an inherited subjective tendency. So this is race suggestion. Another prolific source of disease is race suggestion. Race suggestion means the accumulated subjective tendencies of the human race. These tendencies are operative through any person who is receptive to them. These, then, are the sources from which most diseases come. Conscious observations, suppressed emotions, subjective inherited tendencies, and perhaps 3/4 of them from race consciousness. Wow, it's pretty heavy. It's been said that arthritis is bottled hurt. That because we haven't had an avenue through which to release our pain, that it pools in certain places in our bodies, and we have this pain that starts to happen. But if we were able to release the pain, like every night, do a releasing prayer and say, today was a good day. Some things may have happened that I don't even know about happened that may have blocked my inner flow, and I just release it now and get into that consciousness of releasing anything that may have happened during the day, and review your day and see if there was something that happened that ticked you off, or somebody cut you off, or something didn't go your way, and that you hold some hidden resentment about. And it happens. I mean, it can be challenging to get through a day, a week, a month without any resentment. Oh, it's all good. Well, it's one thing to say, and it is all good, but let's be real, right? Let's be real about some things. Well, there's a couple things about race suggestion that I want to touch on, and this is a joke. I have a joke for you. I know everybody loves the jokes. So, one Sunday morning at a more traditional church during service, a huge, scary devil crashed through the front window of the church. The devil glowed red and breathed fire and roared at the congregations. Everyone went running out of the building in terror except for one man sitting in the front row. The devil walked over and stood in front of the man and bellowed at him, even breathed fire on the pew next to him. The old man just sat there, sitting as though he were waiting. Finally, the devil said, "Don't you know who I am?" "Yes," said the old man, "you're the devil." "Aren't you afraid of me?" And the devil breathed fire on the carpet to punctuate his point. "No," said the man. "Why aren't you afraid?" The old man looked at him and said, "No reason to be afraid. I've been married to your sister for 48 years. Wow. Wow. There's a race-conscious belief. No big deal. At what point do we decide that it's too much where we can get ourselves out of a situation before we just let it go? Well, I've been in this long enough. I've been holding on to this rock in the middle of the river, and it's comfortable now. It has my claw marks in it from holding on. And what if I let go? Maybe there's a smaller rock that I would have later down the river. Even though there's a beach right there that I can see, I don't know if I can swim to it. But there comes a point in each one of our lives where the pain of hanging on becomes greater than the pain of letting go. And we drift. And we either sink or we swim or we fly. But sinking is not a bad thing because we do know how to swim. Even if you can just dog paddle. Dog paddling is good. Did you hear recently the story about the dog who fell overboard and was 2 miles from an island and swam the 2 miles? I could just imagine this dog. And the dog was rescued successfully. It lived off of vermin on the island for a couple days, or maybe even weeks, until somebody that is steward on the island saw this dog and rescued it. And the dog's fine and was reunited. It's a beautiful dog with beautiful blue eyes. I was just imagining this dog in the ocean swimming like for 2 miles. I mean, I would have probably gone down about, 50 feet out. I'm goner, I can't do it. But dog paddling, the dog must have just been like, okay, I know that there's a beach somewhere. And the dog was carried right to the island and survived. It's incredible. But things like this happen. Well, in Science of Mind, we believe in the control of conditions through the power of mind, not vice versa. Think about it. we are not controlled by our conditions. But if we believe that we are, we are. Conditions do not control the mind, even though sometimes there's an appearance of this because of our consciousness is encased in the physical body that engages the experiences, the physical world 16 hours a day. We begin to believe that we are our bodies and the physical self when, in fact, this isn't true. We are having this experience. 90% of who you are isn't really here. It's like being a human being is like putting your pinky into the water. 90% of you, which is always spirit, is having a spiritual experience. But our remembrance has been cut off, because if we could remember who we truly are, we wouldn't be living the way we do. We would probably melt our face or something. It would probably freak us out so much we wouldn't be able to have the experiences that we need to get through this thing called life. Well, when I was doing some work on this and really looking at this, what came to mind for me was the 100th monkey. Has anybody heard of the 100th monkey idea? Well, I had heard about it, and what I knew was there was, when consciousness got to a certain point, if it got to a certain percentage, it tipped the scale, and then many more people would think that way. Well, this is the story that I found, and this is from wowzone.com, and it is from the book The 100th Monkey by Ken Keyes Jr., and this is a story about social change. Japanese monkeys had been observed in the wild for a period of 30 years. In 1952, scientists were providing monkeys with sweet potatoes dropped in the sand. The monkeys liked the taste of the raw sweet potatoes, but they found the dirt and the sand unpleasant. I mean, why don't they drop them somewhere else then, right? But an 18-month-old female found she could solve the problem by washing the potatoes in a nearby stream. So here's an 18-year-old monkey who, what's that? month-old, thank you, year-old. That's young to us. But an 18-month-old monkey who didn't like the taste of the sand and the dirt and went over and washed its food. She taught this trick to her mother. Her playmates also learned this new way, and they taught it to their mothers too. Isn't that interesting? The children teaching to their parents. Oh, out of the mouths of babes, right? This cultural innovation was gradually picked up by various monkeys before the eyes of the scientists. Between 1952 and 1958, all the young monkeys learned to wash the sandy sweet potatoes to make them more palatable. Only the adults who imitated their children learned this social behavior. Other adults kept eating the dirty sweet potatoes. No, we're stubborn, aren't we? Well, they may have those kids these days washing their food. What are they thinking? No, I still like the grit of the dirt. Then something startling took place. In the autumn of 1958, a certain number of monkeys were washing their sweet potatoes. The exact number is not known. Let us suppose that when the sun rose one morning, there were 99 monkeys on the island who had learned to wash their sweet potatoes. Let's further suppose that later that morning, the 100th monkey learned to wash their sweet potatoes. And then it happened. By that evening, almost everyone in the tribe was washing sweet potatoes before eating them. The added energy of this 100th monkey somehow created an ideological breakthrough. But notice, a most surprising thing observed by these scientists was that the habit of washing sweet potatoes jumped over the sea. Colonies of monkeys on other islands and the mainland troop of monkeys began washing their sweet potatoes. Thus, when a certain critical number achieves an awareness, this new awareness may be communicated from mind to mind. Although the exact number may vary, this 100th monkey phenomenon means that when only a limited number of people know of a new way, it may remain the conscious property of these people. But if there is a point at which, if only one more person tunes into the new awareness, a field is strengthened so that this awareness is picked up by almost everyone. Again, this is from the book 100th Monkey by Ken Keyes Jr. This book is not copywritten, and the material may be reproduced in part or whole. How interesting is that? Have you ever created something, and then like a week or two later, you're watching, Channel 13 or whatever, and they're like, and now this new invention, and it's like, that's my invention. Hey, how did they do that? How did they know my mind? Or have you ever thought about somebody, and then within a week or so, they call you? We've all had experiences like that. What happened there? Did we pick up on something, or did we broadcast something that made that happen? Either way, there was a knowing. There was something in the ethers. There was an energy that was transferred without a communication line, or there was a line that was invisible. Just like, does anybody here have one of those new cell phone things? No? Nobody? Well, there's this new thing out called a cell phone. We're all going to have numbers someday. I know, it's hard to believe. But you have this phone, right? Where's the line? Where's the cord? Do you ever think about that? It's an antenna going to a satellite somewhere. Well, we are the same way. We have a cord, an invisible umbilical that connects us to everything that is. And this internet thing that we're, that interweb, that new interweb thing that they're devising, you heard of that too? It's great. You get this box, this computer, and you click on something, and you can bring up anything in the world you can think about instantaneously. Well, this is the precursor to us thinking in that way. I know it's freaking you guys out, but you ever watch this Star Trek thing? This series that's on called Star Trek? You ever see them? Beam me up, Scotty. And now we have those. We aren't quite beaming ourselves to other places yet. But, if you watch Star Trek, you'll see the precursor to things that we have now developed. Isn't it interesting? And now they have these 3D fax machines. Crazy. You fax an image that's actually three-dimensional. It's actually tangible. How does that happen? How does that work? And beam me up, Scotty, may be something that we, mark my words, in the future, this may happen. I just don't want to be torn apart bit by bit and reassembled somewhere yet until they figure that part out. But things are changing, and we are in a really unique place, and it's a great place to be. Science of Mind, we believe in the control of conditions through the power of mind, and not vice versa. But so long we have lived with conditions controlling our lives. We live around our conditions when we should be living and controlling our conditions through the power of what we believe. This is the right use of mind. This is the right use of, this is why this talk is called Don't Bring Me Down. Because race suggestion, for me, has usually been, isn't it awful? Oh, when's the other shoe going to drop? And it may be really nice now, but the heat is coming. What are we doing? We're living out there. Or, oh, we didn't get the rain we needed. Oh, we're living in the past of what didn't happen. But right now, it's beautiful out. Let's enjoy the day, right? But so often we're, oh, well, the heat's coming. Are you prepared for the heat? You're not in this moment enjoying what is. So, did you ever not do something because of your fear of it not working out? Like, I'd love to be in a relationship, but boy, the last breakup I went through, so I'm never going to love like that again. And you hold yourself back from experiencing something that you really want to experience, but because of your past experience, you're held back by completely emerging into your greatest yet to be because of your fear of failure. And it's okay to have a fear of failure. It keeps us from stepping in front of buses. But when it keeps us from living full lives, don't bring me down. Don't hold me back. My past, like I said last week, when we're driving our car, we're looking through the windshield. We're not driving our car through the rear view mirror. If you only looked at the rear view mirror, you'd probably crash. But we live our lives going backwards. There's a reason that the windshield is big and that the rear view mirror is small, right? Because we want to know what's behind us, but what's more important is what's now. What's happening now? So, in conclusion, the power of mind is the nature of the infinite. It is your nature. You are naturally imbued with the power to create. You are a creative genius. Each one of us is. And each one of us has our own piece of the puzzle to create. Nobody can be you. Nobody can do it like you can. Like I said, even when I mess stuff up, nobody can mess it up like me. I'm pretty good at messing stuff up. And I claim it now. You see that? That's my mess up. That's my mess. I'm going to put my name on that. I like it so much. Because when I clean it up, that's my mess that was a mess that I turned into a beautiful experience like nobody else can. And you can do that with your life. If you can look at it differently, but you have to claim it. We so want to blame. My whole thing was, mistakes have been made and others will be blamed. It was never my fault. Oh, no, I can justify that away in some way. Oh, nope, well, if my dog hadn't ate my homework, I'd have been an A in that class. But my dog always does it to me. Don't you know? Always gets in my way. Since each of us have the power of the mind readily available, then each of us are included in this nature of the infinite. The Creator means that each of us can create. Since each of us can create, then each of us are able to recreate and make over our lives into the way we choose it to be. Every morning, we are given a new lifetime. If you can see every day as a lifetime, every morning, our challenge is that we have too much memory of what happened yesterday that keeps us from expressing today. Since each of us can create, then each of us are able to recreate our lives in a way that gives us the experience that we desire. It's a beautiful world when we see it that way. And so it is.